What's up guys, this is VinylicPuma and today I'm back with another Borderlands History countdown, and in this episode I'm going to be going over 10 of what I think are among some of the best shotguns in Borderlands history. Now before we start, there are a lot of really great shotguns from all the Borderlands games, and there is a good chance that at least one of your favorite shotguns probably won't be included on this list. Not only is this because there are so many good shotguns in Borderlands 2, but it's also because I'm trying to strike a fair balance between all the games in the series. Otherwise, this list would just consist of the numerous unique variants of Hyperion shotguns that are only in Borderlands 2. As always, because I have to narrow these lists down to just 10 weapons, feel free to leave comments on some of your favorites in the comments section below. However, without further ado, I'm pleased to present 10 of what I think are among the best shotguns in Borderlands history, starting with number 10, and that is going to be the Torquemada shotgun from Borderlands, the pre-sequel. So the Torquemada could be best described as an interesting cross between the Landscaper and Flakker. However, instead of laying the equivalent of landmines in a rectangular spread, the Torquemada opts for a triangular spread, and the projectiles emit bits of flak, which then explode after a certain period of time. So, provided the enemies you're fighting are standing somewhat still, or if they're frozen, you could feasibly miss with the Torquemada and end up defeating those enemies anyway, thanks to the random bits of flak. I also think the triangular spread is much easier to control and at least seems to be a lot tighter than the ridiculous rectangular and pentagonal projectile spread that you might see on other shotguns like the Landscaper and the Wombat. If you want this shotgun though, the Torquemada is obtained by siding with Mr. Torgue during the Torgo side quest mission that's located in Serenity's Waste. Just be sure to wait until you're at maximum level to start and complete this quest, that way you have a better chance of getting the best version. Number 9. The Striker shotgun from Borderlands 1. Not to be confused with the fairly underwhelming Striker shotgun that appears in both Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, the original Striker from Borderlands 1 is actually pretty awesome. While the Borderlands 1 variant isn't quite as accurate, nor does it have the same fire rate as the later variants, the Borderlands 1 variant has the major advantage of having a much higher magazine size, clocking in as high as 12. And perhaps it's just me, but I also think that the recoil on the Borderlands 1 Striker is a lot less severe. And this can really be attributed to the Striker's unique barrel, which is known to help reduce recoil in addition to reducing projectile spread, which further improves accuracy. I think my only real complaint with this weapon would center around its fire rate. Compared to many of the other assault as well as combat shotguns, the Striker's fire rate is noticeably lower, especially when compared to some of the other legendaries from Borderlands 1 like the Bulldog or even the SNS Crux. If the fire rate was just a little bit higher, I think I would like the Borderlands 1 variant a lot more. But it's still a great weapon, and if you want this gun, like all Borderlands 1 legendaries, it can be obtained from any suitable loot source. Number 8. The Omen shotgun from Borderlands 2. When it comes to Seraph shotguns, the Omen is actually pretty good, as it's the best TDR shotgun in the game in terms of both projectile and reload damage. Also, despite being an E-Tech shotgun, it only consumes 1 ammo per shot, making it far more ammo efficient than many other E-Tech splat guns. With this said, I will admit that the Omen's projectile pattern is somewhat unpredictable and can be difficult to properly take advantage of at first. However, with practice, it does become easier to control, and you should be able to really dish out the pain to nearby enemies. What I also like about the Omen is that it's viable across a wide variety of builds and characters. If you play Axton, I think you'll find that this is a good weapon in a TDR reload build. Gauge players may like the reliable projectile pattern at higher anarchy stacks, and even Maya may like this gun when it's paired with her converge and chain reaction skills. The only real lame thing about the Omen is that it can only be acquired by defeating the Ancient Dragons of Destruction raid boss from the Dragon Keep DLC. And while the dragons aren't quite as hard as something like Veracitus, I do wish this weapon could have been purchased from the Seraph vendor. However, like a lot of the other better Seraph weapons that require you to farm a raid boss to acquire them, the Omen is definitely worth it and is highly recommended by me. Number 7. The Bulldog shotgun from Borderlands 1. When it comes to Borderlands 1 shotguns, the Bulldog is perfect for spamming lead into an enemy's face thanks to its abnormally high magazine size, increased fire rate, and decreased reload speed. These particular characteristics come from the weapon's unique magazine, which of course increase all of these attributes. What's also nice about the Bulldog though is the potential amount of flexibility and variation it can have based on what parts spawn on it. Not only can this weapon come in any elements, making it a perfect choice for any situation, but you can also get this weapon to spawn with the Carnage Barrel for shotguns, which allows the player to potentially fire rocket projectiles. While these rockets aren't insanely strong or anything, it's pretty cool that you can do this, and as you're seeing with the fire elemental variant in this video, the ability to shoot fire rockets is pretty cool and proves to be fairly effective up against fire vulnerable enemies. Like I said though, what makes this weapon so awesome is its potential flexibility. Because this weapon is already somewhat predisposed to having fairly high DPS already, it gives the weapon a lot of different use cases depending on what parts spawn on it. You can have everything from shock elemental bullet span type weapons to corrosive 20-round rocket launchers, and I think that's pretty cool. Like many other legendary shotguns from Borderlands 1, this particular weapon can be found and can drop from any suitable loot source. Number 6. The Jolly Roger shotgun from Borderlands 2. So, the Jolly Roger is a somewhat overlooked shotgun in Borderlands 2. While you frequently hear and see other shotguns like the Swordsplosion, Conference Call, Slowhand, or Blockhead, the Jolly Roger is rarely ever brought up for some reason. I suppose this is because it's a bandit shotgun and bandit weapons on average tend to be pretty terrible. However, it's also possible that it's simply overshadowed by a few other phenomenal weapons from the Captain Scarlet DLC, like the Tattler, Sandhawk, or Pimpernel. As for the weapon itself, the Jolly Roger tends to be a phenomenal choice due to its high projectile counts and its fixed skull and bones projectile pattern. In fact, you might be surprised to know that the Jolly Roger is roughly on par with the Jakobs quad in terms of projectile count, and unlike most quad barrel shotguns, you're only consuming 3 projectiles per shot with the Jolly Roger. Plus, I also guess it doesn't hurt that the Jolly Roger can come in all elements, where the quad cannot. My only complaint would be that this weapon doesn't have the critical bonus that the Jakobs quad has. However, again, I think that's a fair trade-off for the ability to come in any element, as well as the ability to consume less ammo per shot. The Jolly Roger is also somewhat easy to get, as you can acquire one from the Just Desserts for Desert Deserter side quest mission from the Captain Scarlet DLC. And while this side quest may be somewhat involved, it's certainly worth it for something that's this good, and hopefully we'll see it return in Borderlands 3. Number 5. The Flakker shotgun from Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel. While it may appear to be an awful weapon upon first using it, the Flakker is actually quite powerful in the right scenarios when properly paired with the right weapons and skills. Unlike most shotguns, let alone weapons, the Flakker is more of an area of effect type weapon that fires a number of flaks that deal decent damage over a confined area rather than directly to an enemy. As you might imagine, a weapon like this tends to work best against enemies that are difficult to hit and have low health, like Rax, or up against really large enemies that take up a lot of space, like the Warrior, the Hyperion Sentinel, or some raid bosses. Some of you may or may not consider this to be cheating, but the Flakker really starts to come into its own with the aid of passive weapon effects. Provided you either dual wield the Flakker with a Torgue rocket launcher, or provided you fire the Flakker and then quickly swap to a Torgue rocket launcher, you can massively increase the Flakker's damage, making it super lethal to pretty much all enemies. As for acquisition, the Flakker is obtained from either a Torgue vending machine, the Warrior, or the Handsome Sorcerer in Borderlands 2. In the pre-sequel, it can be obtained from any suitable loot source. However, it is worth mentioning that it has an enhanced chance to drop from the even more disgusting Torque enemy that appears during the All the Little Creatures mission. And if you're curious, this boss can respawn once the mission is completed. Number 4. The Twister shotgun from Borderlands 2. Despite its unique projectile pattern and other bizarre attributes for a Jakobs weapon, the Twister is a great choice for a shotgun in Borderlands 2. As you should be able to see from the gameplay, the projectiles circulate in a twister formation towards your intended target. And as a twist, no pun intended, the twister is a Jakobs shotgun with an elemental capacitor, which allows the player to deal shock damage to an enemy target. So not only are you getting the enhanced critical bonus that's innate to most Jakobs weapons, but you're also getting this on a weapon that's shock elemental and can receive multiplicative damage increases from shock elemental damage bonuses that are provided from relics or skills. This tends to be a great weapon on pretty much all characters as well. While it's typically a popular choice for Gauge players, thanks to its great synergy with Anarchy and Wires Don't Talk, I think you'll also find that you can get a lot out of this weapon on some other characters. After all, due to the nature of the Twister's projectiles, it's possible to get some of the projectiles to travel through an enemy twice thanks to Zero's Bore. Or in the case of Maya, she can phase lock an enemy, fire the Twister into an enemy's crit spot, and then quickly swap to a Lady Fist to greatly enhance the damage. It's also worth mentioning that the Twister can benefit from grenade damage bonus, meaning you could feasibly use it on characters like Axton or Krieg, depending on how you've spec'd them. The only lame thing about the Twister is acquiring it, as you're going to need to spawn an enemy called Omen. This is done by using a Witch Doctor to level up a badass Savage 3 times, and assuming you could get Triple O or Omen to spawn, and you can kill him, you can have a chance to get your hands on this great weapon. Number 3. The Flare Shotgun from Borderlands the Pre-Sequel. So the Flare is a variant of the Jakobs Coach Gun, or the standard non-unique double-barrel shotgun from Jakobs, and is a massive improvement over the original. While the Flare's base damage is largely the same as the Coach Gun, the Flare usually has a better projectile multiplier and always has about quadruple the magazine size. So instead of firing just one shot before reloading, the Flare will usually allow you to fire at least 4 shots, greatly improving the weapon's DPS. In fact, I'd go as far to say that the Flare is the pre-sequel's best legendary shotgun. Then again, I suppose it doesn't have very much competition when you consider that most of the other legendary shotguns from the pre-sequel are either ports or inferior reworks of legendaries from Borderlands 2, but I'd still say the Flare is a great weapon across pretty much all build types. In fact, characters like Athena and Jack can greatly enhance this weapon thanks to skills like Elemental Barrage and Absolute Advantage, while Nisha can take the Flare's damage to monstrous levels thanks to her Tombstone, Trick Shot, and Hot Lead skills. Overall, the Flare is a really nice shotgun to have, and if you want one, it supposedly drops from virus-type enemies in the Claptastic Voyage DLC. However, I managed to find mine by defeating Eclipse and EOS during the System Shutdown main DLC mission, where you can get a random free legendary. Number 2. The Hammer Shotgun from Borderlands 1. As far as Borderlands 1 shotguns go, one of my favorite shotguns happens to be the Hammer Shotgun from Vladov. The main reason for this is because I like the high fire rate, fairly exceptional magazine size, and I also like the damage on this weapon and the unique projectile spread that takes the shape of a hammer. Also, compared to the explosive accessory that's found on other shotguns, the hammer accessory manages to further increase damage instead of reducing it. Plus, it also provides a slight increase to your magazine size, which is a decent improvement given that many assault shotguns typically have a magazine size of around 5 to 7, and bringing that number up to as high as 9 is pretty good if you ask me. Ultimately, this is a great choice for a shotgun in Borderlands 1, and I really hope it makes a return in Borderlands 3. If you want the Hammer Shotgun, like most other Borderlands 1 legendaries, it can be obtained from any suitable loot source. And finally, number 1, the Interfacer Shotgun from Borderlands 2. In addition to being one of the top 5 best weapons from Borderlands 2, the Interfacer is the strongest shotgun from the series' second outing. I will admit that killing Verastus from the Hammerlock's Big Game Hunt DLC to obtain one of these guns is incredibly difficult, but it is well worth it considering just how powerful this weapon can be, especially if you can get one with a vertical grip and all Hyperion parts. What makes the Interfacer great is its excellent accuracy, fairly high projectile count, and most importantly, its abnormally high critical hit bonus. These attributes together make the Interfacer an excellent choice up against raid bosses or any enemy that's vulnerable to critical hits. With this said, the Interfacer does have a few downsides. One of them is high ammo consumption, and at 2 bullets per shot, this is pretty much a deal breaker on most characters. However, if you're playing as Salvador, this won't be as much of an issue, as Salvador can regenerate ammo through class mods as well as his gunzerking action skill. There's also the issue of the slow projectile speed, as the Interfacer's projectiles are somewhat reminiscent of the Torgue gyrojet projectiles, but as long as you're fairly close to targets, again, you may not find this to be too much of an issue. All in all though, the Interfacer is a must-have weapon for Salvador in Borderlands 2, and is highly recommended by me. Alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad so you're notified when I upload my next video, and as always, thank you all so much for supporting the channel, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.